The stranger whispered, "You are my payment now." I felt my heart stop. My summary of Dante by Sadie Kincaid builds hope and improves your choices. You will sound so smart. Keep watching and read it yourself.
So the air in the second floor hallway of the Moretti estate is it's heavy,
Yeah.
but not with tension for once. It's this strange, almost suffocating kind of peace. It's so quiet.
Right.
The kind of quiet you really only get in a fortress, a place built with walls thick enough to keep the entire world out.
The illusion of the fortress, really.
Exactly. And you are standing there, and the sensory input is just overwhelmingly, it's domestic.
It smells like fresh paint.
Fresh paint. Such a soft, hopeful smell. She's just been in the nursery. She literally has paint on her overalls.
Yeah.
And underneath that sharp, clean scent of the paint, there is this faint, lingering warmth just sort of drifting up from the kitchen.
Sophia's cooking.
Right, Sophia's cooking. Garlic, rich tomato sauce, baking bread. It's the scent of a home, a real impenetrable home.
Which she hasn't had in years.
No, not at all.
Huh.
You are Kat Evanson, and for the first time in basically forever, your nervous system has finally stopped screaming. You are safe.
Or so you think.
Right. You are the fiancé of Dante Moretti, the apex predator of Chicago. He has thrown this absolute terrifying blanket of protection over you. The monsters cannot reach you here.
But then...
Yeah, the absolute illusion of it all. You're walking down that pristine hallway, feeling the soft carpet under your feet, just letting your guard down. And then you hear it.
It doesn't just break the silence. It violently tears it open.
Alas.
High-pitched.
Hyena-like.
Utterly, completely deranged.
And it's coming from the study, Dante's study, the absolute epicenter of her safety.
The physical reality of her world doesn't just shatter in that moment. It undergoes this catastrophic collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, the text here, it doesn't just ask you to witness her fear. It basically drags you into the physiological reality of a human being whose brain has just completely short-circuited.
It's agonizing to read. You are trapped in her body as the amygdala just completely hijacks her nervous system.
Right, because it's not a thought process.
No, it's a biological freefall. The blood instantly drains from her face, her throat closes.
Literally closes.
Not a metaphor. The actual physical constriction of the muscles so tight it feels like swallowing crushed glass. The oxygen just stops.
Her joints lock into this paralyzing, ice-cold rigidity.
It is a visceral, humiliating terror, the kind of terror that bypasses every rational thought, every comfort of that fresh nursery paint. It hits the nervous system with such localized violence that her body just lets go.
Complete loss of physical
A
control.
wet patch spreading on her clothes.
Yeah.
Right there in the hallway. This sheer degrading reality of her trauma manifesting physically.
The contrast is what makes it so sickening.
Oh, absolutely.
Because one moment she is leaning into this newfound sanctuary, she's painting a nursery, physically building a future,
Yeah.
and in a fraction of a second, the very architect of her deepest, most agonizing trauma is sitting casually in the next room, having a chat with her fiance.
The monster from her nightmares is breathing the exact same conditioned air.
The sanctuary and the slaughterhouse just occupying the exact same square footage.
Right? So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are stepping into the pitch black, suffocating, and honestly morally labyrinthine world of Sadie Kincaid's Chicago Ruthless.
It is a lot to unpack.
It really is. Our entire focus today is on the architecture of a very specific, highly controversial dynamic. We are unpacking Dante Moretti.
We have to.
We are looking at a man who is universally recognized as a monster, an absolute butcher to the outside world, who simultaneously constructs himself as an impenetrable fortress for one specific woman.
It's a duality that demands you strip away everything you assume about safety.
Right.
Because we're asking you to look at a world where institutional justice is a myth.
Totally absent.
Exactly. The police, the law, the societal safety nets, they are completely corrupt. In the Cosa Nostra underworld, true safety, the kind that actually allows a hunted woman to close her eyes at night, can only be guaranteed by the most violent entity in the room.
Right.
You can only be protected by the apex predator.
Yeah, but I just can't accept that premise.
Why not?
I can't accept it without a massive glaring caveat. We are talking about a relationship, right? A dynamic that eventually demands trust, vulnerability, intimacy, and it literally originates from a kidnapping.
Well,
Human collateral. Treating a human being like a casino chip to settle a gambling debt. How do we even begin to root for a dynamic born from extortion.
It's definitely dark.
It's irredeemable. You cannot romanticize this. He treats her like property.
In a civilized society, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're projecting a civilized lens onto a slaughterhouse.
I mean,
You have to evaluate Salvatore Moretti's underworld by its own brutal physics. In this specific ecosystem, Kat's brother, Leo, stole $250,000 from the Mafia.
which Kat had absolutely nothing to do with.
Which doesn't matter to the men who come to collect. In the established mechanics of this world, Leo's theft guarantees a slow, excruciating execution for Leo, and inevitably, anyone connected to him is going to be used as leverage. So, when Dante walks into that house and takes Kat as payment, he is violently disrupting the established rules of his own universe.
He's still kidnapping her.
But he is stepping outside the protocol of mere execution.
Okay, let's slow down and look at the actual economics of that captivity. Chapter 1, the introduction to Kat's world.
Yeah, the sensory details here are so crucial.
They are. Because you have to understand the sheer violence of this intrusion. Kat is exhausted. She is a former ER nurse, a woman who used to save lives in a chaotic, brightly lit trauma center.
And she has completely retreated from the world.
Completely.
Yeah.
She now scrubs empty office buildings on the night shift. She has shrunk her entire existence down to the shadows.
Yeah.
So she comes home wearing a too small cleaning uniform. He's carrying cheap groceries, cleaning supplies. She crosses the threshold of her modest rental house, the only space she controls, and sitting at her kitchen table are two massive, heavily tattooed men in tailored suits.
Dante Moretti and his enforcer, Maximo DeMarco.
Right. The visual claustrophobia of that kitchen is just staggering. Two apex predators taking up all the oxygen in a space meant for quiet isolation.
And there is this one specific haunting detail.
Yeah.
The smell of her cocoa butter lotion.
Oh, yes. It's sweet. It's cheap. It's deeply comforting.
Right.
It is the scent of a woman desperately trying to scrub away the harsh chemical smell of industrial floor cleaners, trying to reclaim some tiny, fragile piece of her humanity after a grueling, invisible shift.
Exactly.
And that sweet, innocent scent is suddenly suffocated by the visceral, dark menace of Dante's presence.
The sheer arrogance of him sitting in her chair.
In her home, calmly informing her that her brother owes $250,000, and since Leo has vanished, she is the payment.
He assesses her value instantly.
Yeah.
But look closely at her reaction. She doesn't just fold.
No, she fights back.
She doesn't collapse into tears. She throws a baseball bat at them. She scrambles to her bedroom, her ultimate locked door sanctuary.
And she pulls a Glock from under her pillow. And this is where the illusion of her safety is completely atomized. She aims the gun squarely at Maximo's chest. Her hands are shaking, but she pulls the trigger.
And click.
Just a soft click. No gunshot, no recoil. Just the sound of absolute helplessness.
It is the manifestation of the Mafia's absolute preparation.
Yeah.
They didn't just break into her house. They dismantled her defenses before she even put her key in the door.
They found the gun.
They emptied it. They deliberately let her believe she had a lifeline, a final measure of protection, only to let her discover they had already severed it.
It is pure psychological warfare. It shatters her completely.
Yeah.
But this brings me right back to the core friction of this entire deep dive.
Which is?
Dante sits there, watches her realize she is entirely powerless, and calmly states, "I'm taking you."
Yeah.
He is removing a woman's agency. He is stripping her of her life, her meager job, her home, and locking her in a compound.
You're right to be repulsed by the mechanics of the act. It is, by definition, a severe violation. But look at the subtext of Dante's decision in that kitchen. Why does he actually take her?
Because he can.
No, he came to execute a thief. He is the head of the Cosa Nostra. He doesn't need a maid to work off a debt.
Right.
He doesn't need a hostage for money he knows Leo doesn't have. When Kat stands there, terrified but feral, throwing a blunt weapon at his enforcer's head, Dante is intrigued.
He sees a puzzle.
Exactly. A woman who was a highly respected pediatric ER nurse, a high-stress, high-functioning career, who suddenly quit to scrub toilets in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Dante is an exceptional reader of people. He sees the shadow of a profound, devastating trauma hiding behind her defiance. He takes her not just as a cruel form of payment, but because the mathematical alternative is leaving her exposed in that house to the men who will eventually come looking for Leo.
Which they would.
Men who will not just sit at her table. This is the inception of the protective monster dynamic.
A protective monster who locks you in a bedroom.
A locked bedroom in a fortress where no one else can touch her. It is an extreme, morally bankrupt methodology applied to a world where conventional morality gets you killed. He removes her from a vulnerable perimeter and places her in the center of his own heavily armed existence.
Okay, we have to dive into what drove her into the dark in the first place then. We literally cannot evaluate Dante's methods without understanding the depth of her wounds.
The two lives theory.
Yes. This concept is central to everything Cat is, and everything this book is trying to say about survival.
The person you were before the trauma and the person you're after.
Right. Two distinct entities, separated by a massive chasm of violence.
Yeah.
When Dante and Cat's relationship eventually escalates, when it becomes physical, there's a hard, immovable boundary. She absolutely refuses to be touched from behind.
The terror is immediate.
Violent and paralyzing.
Yeah.
And she finally reveals the source of that terror. 2 years prior to Dante sitting in her kitchen, walking home from a double shift at the hospital, 2 men dragged her into a van.
Yeah.
They chained her in a soundproof basement for 2 days. They raped her repeatedly.
And while they destroyed her...
They laughed. They thought her pain was a joke. And one of them took a knife and carved the word whore into her back.
The physical, permanent branding of trauma.
It's not just a memory.
No, it's an inscription on her body.
She spent 2 years trying to carve the word out of her own skin to make it unreadable.
Which is horrifying.
Think about the psychological state required to take a blade to your own back just to obscure the letters. She retreated from medicine, from daylight, from human connection.
She split her life.
Exactly. Into the before Cat, who saved children in the ER, and the after Cat, who hides from the sun.
And this is where Dante's psychological acuity, his almost supernatural ability to read micro-expressions and body language, becomes the pivot point of their entire dynamic.
Right.
Dante is a man capable of supreme, unfathomable violence. He commands an army of killers. Yet, observe how he uses his physical dominance with Cat.
It's intense.
When she suffers a severe PTSD flashback in his bed, when she is screaming, completely detached from the present, lost in the sensory memory of the basement, believing the hands on her belong to her attackers, Dante doesn't flinch away.
He pins her down.
He holds her down.
Which is terrifying.
But not to hurt her. He uses his overwhelming physical weight to ground her.
I mean...
This is a crucial psychological distinction. In a flashback, the brain cannot distinguish between a memory and reality. The amygdala fires as if the attack is happening right now.
Sure, but...
Dante uses his physical mass to force her sensory nervous system to register current reality. He replaces the phantom, terrifying sensory memory of her attackers with the undeniable, solid, anchored reality of his own presence.
Yeah.
He whispers to her. He overrides the panic with his own gravity.
But you have to see the moral hazard here. He is using the exact physical mechanics of her assault.
Yeah.
Being held down, rendered immobile, overpowered to, quote-unquote, heal her.
It works, though.
You have to question the ethics of this power dynamic. Is he actually healing her, or is this a severe textbook case of Stockholm Syndrome?
I don't think it is.
Look at the environment. He controls her food, he controls her movements, he controls who she speaks to. He has isolated her completely from the outside world.
Only to keep her safe.
But when a captor systematically breaks down your reality, and then offers himself as the only source of comfort, the dependency that forms isn't healing. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
It's trauma bonding on a cellular level. It's the brain deciding that loving the monster is the only way to survive the cage.
It would be Stockholm Syndrome if he demanded submission to his illusion.
He kind of does.
No, if he required her to shrink to fit his needs. Stockholm Syndrome requires the victim to adopt the captor's worldview to survive, to become compliant. Dante does the exact opposite.
How so?
He forces Cat to adopt her own power. He doesn't offer pity. He doesn't coddle her trauma or treat her like glass. He strips away her identity as a victim.
Okay, I see what you're saying, but...
He looks at this woman, broken by the world, hiding under oversized clothes, and tells her, "You are the only woman with the power to bring me to my knees."
Right.
He doesn't just want her compliant. He wants her feral. He wants the wildcat who threw a baseball bat at him in the kitchen.
By forcing her to confront her rapists.
By forcing her to realize she is no longer the prey. When Dante discovers that Elmo and Tony, the 2 men who work for his own father's syndicate, are the ones who attacked her, he doesn't just quietly dispose of them.
No, he definitely doesn't.
He doesn't shield her from the reality of his vengeance. He marches Cat down the hallway to the study.
Going back to that agonizing scene from the beginning,
Yeah,
where she hears the laugh,
exactly.
where she is so terrified she literally loses control of her bladder.
Yes, she is terrified, and Dante forces her to walk into that room anyway.
Which feels so cruel.
Not to punish her, not to humiliate her, but to force her to look at the monsters that have haunted her nightmares, dictated her every waking moment for 2 years, and realize they are just pathetic, weak men. He forces her to witness their fear of him, transferring that power to her.
The atmosphere of this book gives you absolute tonal whiplash.
Oh, yeah.
The transition from that study to what happens next, we have to look at the spatial duality of the Moretti estate. The architecture of her captivity is split into 2 distinct realms.
The kitchen and the basement.
Yes. You have the kitchen. The kitchen is bathed in light. It smells like Sophia's cooking. It represents normalcy.
Some massive plates of lasagna.
It's the giant, ridiculous cheesecake when Dante proposes. It's the warmth, the noise, the messy affection of a family Cat never had. It's the illusion of a normal life.
But directly beneath that warmth,
Beneath the floorboards is the basement.
the cold, soundproof, concrete reality of Dante's world, the foundation upon which the kitchen is built.
The basement is where Dante takes Elmo and Tony. And we need to spend serious time on this climax because the mechanics of this scene completely define Dante's true nature.
It's brutal.
He locks them in a concrete room. He doesn't just execute them. A bullet to the back of the head would be a mob standard. It'll be quick.
But Dante and Maximo,
They strip him. They inject him with lethal doses of Viagra. They inject him with pure adrenaline.
forcing the body to endure what the mind wants to escape. Biological cruelty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Dante forces them, under the threat of being slowly flayed with a broken glass bottle, to rape and torture each other to death.
Yeah.
He sits in a chair. He watches. He forces Tony to take a blade and carve a word into Elmo's back.
The symmetry of it.
He orchestrates a scenario of such a profound, escalating depravity that Elmo eventually stomps Tony's skull into the concrete floor until it literally caves in. And then Maximo steps forward and slits Elmo's throat.
The symmetry is everything here.
The symmetry is depraved. It is pure, unadulterated sadism. He forces them to enact the exact, specific violation they inflicted on Kat upon each other. He sits back and watches them tear each other apart for 4 agonizing hours. You cannot tell me a man who orchestrates that, who calmly listens to those screams, who meticulously calculates the dosage of adrenaline to prolong their suffering and feel satisfaction. You cannot tell me that man has a shred of morality left.
Well,
It proves he is a monster to his core.
it proves he is exactly the monster Cat required.
Oh, come on.
No, listen. Morality, in the conventional, sterilized sense you are clinging to, failed Cat. The legal system failed her. The police failed her. Her own brother, Leo, failed her. In fact, we learn later that Leo is the one who sold her to Elmo and Tony to cover a $5,000 gambling debt.
Which is sickening.
In a world of absolute suffocating darkness, a white knight who plays by the rules is completely useless. A knight arrests them, puts them in a cell, gives them a trial where Cat would have to be cross-examined and humiliated all over again.
I mean, that is how justice works.
Monsters don't care about the rules of knights. The only thing that can eradicate a monster permanently is a bigger, more ruthless apex monster.
So the basement is justice.
The violence in that basement, it isn't just vengeance. It is Dante's ultimate, terrifying love letter to Cat.
Wow.
He balances the cosmic scales for her in the only currency the underworld respects. Absolute symmetrical suffering.
A love letter written in blood, adrenaline, and concrete.
Symmetrical suffering. They laughed while they broke her. They thought her pain was a joke.
Right.
Dante ensured they spent their final 4 hours on Earth experiencing the exact excruciating terror, the exact bodily violation, the exact physical branding and humiliation they inflicted on an innocent woman.
He didn't just end their lives.
He obliterated their psychology. He returned the trauma to its source. For a woman who spent 2 years terrified of her own shadow, knowing that the architects of her nightmares were reduced to begging, broken, violated shells, that is a definitive severing of the before and the after.
Yeah.
Dante builds a wall of corpses, yes, but he builds it to ensure her after is impenetrable.
Which forces us, inevitably, to look at the blood-soaked legacy Dante is inheriting. The system that creates Elmos and Tonys in the first place.
Right.
The sins of the father, Salvatore Moretti.
The rot at the absolute core of the empire.
We find out the real reason Dante was sent to collect Cat in Chapter 1. It wasn't about Leo's death. That was just a cover.
Yeah.
Salvatore sent his most lethal son to Kat's house because he thought Kat might have seen something she shouldn't have. Salvatore, Dante's own father, the head of the family, was running a human trafficking ring,
Women and children in cages.
a parasitic fungus rotting the entire organization from the inside out. And he gave Dante a unilateral ultimatum regarding Kat: marry her or kill her.
Because Salvatore assumed Dante, the ruthless enforcer, the obedient son, would simply eliminate the loose end.
Right. It's a profound miscalculation.
It reveals a father who fundamentally misunderstands the architecture of his own son's mind.
Yeah.
Salvatore views humanity purely as collateral, meat, leverage. Dante views loyalty as absolute, and he has a deeply buried, rigid code regarding the innocent.
And this isn't the first time Salvatore played this card. We really have to dive into the story of Nietzsche, Nicole Santangelo.
Oh, this part is huge.
The public rumor, the mythos that surrounds Dante Moretti, the reason everyone, including Kat initially, is terrified of him, is that he slaughtered his fiancée and her entire family the night before their wedding in a fit of psychotic, jealous rage.
It's his defining legend.
But the truth is infinitely darker and bizarrely more noble.
The truth is the ultimate subversion of his own terrifying reputation.
Dante discovers that Nietzsche's father and brothers were physically and sexually abusing her. They were using her as a pawn. And worse, Salvatore Moretti, Dante's father, had raped Nietzsche, resulting in her pregnancy with a child named Deacon.
Dante's own half-brother.
When Dante finds out, he doesn't hesitate. He executes Nietzsche's abusers. He fakes Nietzsche's death entirely. He gives her a new identity, a new life hidden away in the country, and he willingly absorbs the public label of a psychotic, family-annihilating fiancé killer to ensure nobody ever goes looking for her.
He willingly wears the mask of the devil to act as her shield. Yeah. He takes on the hatred, the fear, the intense isolation of that reputation, simply to give an innocent woman a sanctuary. It's the highest form of sacrifice in his world.
Right.
He sacrifices his own humanity in the eyes of the public, the respect of polite society, just to preserve hers.
But look at the thematic stakes here. Look at Kat now. She is pregnant. She is standing in that house wearing her dead mother's tattered, worn-out cardigan.
The cardigan is such a strong symbol.
That cardigan is a symbol of a flawed, fragile, but inherently good family legacy, a mother who loved her. And while she's wearing that symbol of fragile goodness, Dante proposes to her with his grandmother's massive emerald ring, a ring paid for with blood money.
Right.
You have these two completely opposing legacies colliding on her body, and the question has to be asked.
What's that?
Can Dante truly be a good father to their unborn child, Gabriella, while simultaneously remaining the head of the Cosa Nostra? You can't be the CEO of a murder syndicate and a PTA dad. He executes his own father. He walks up, shoots Salvatore in the head, makes it look like a hit by the Russian mob, and he takes the throne.
Yeah.
He doesn't burn the corrupt human trafficking empire to the ground. He just chops down the rotting tree and takes the crown for himself. He is still upholding a system built on extortion, violence, and blood.
But if he burns it to the ground, a vacuum opens.
Oh, so.
And in the underworld, power vacuums are filled by something worse. If the Moretti family falls, the Russians move in, the cartels move in.
Right.
Men who do not have Dante's rigid, violent code.
Yeah.
By taking the crown, Dante controls the damage. He executes his father specifically to excise the rot of human trafficking from his legacy. He draws a hard line in the sand with the blood of his own father. He assumes the burden of leadership, not because he craves the power, he never wanted it, it was supposed to be his brother Lorenzo's birthright, but because he is the only one capable of holding the darkness at bay. Being a quote-unquote good father in Dante's world doesn't mean teaching his kid to ride a bike in a suburban cul-de-sac. It means ensuring the ground they walk on is completely ruthlessly scoured of threats.
Scouring the earth of threats. Which brings us to the most controversial execution in the book. The ultimate test of Dante's control over Kat's life.
Leo,
her brother.
the architect of her before, the ultimate severing of the past.
Dante tracks Leo Evanson to Los Angeles.
Yeah,
And the final revelation of Leo's betrayal is it's sickening.
it really is.
Leo didn't just owe money. He actively traded his sister to Elmo and Tony for a $5,000 gambling debt.
$5,000.
He knew exactly what they were. He knew exactly what they would do to her. He handed over her work schedule. He unlocked her door. And later, he sold her out to Salvatore.
Yeah.
When Dante finally corners him, Leo tries to offer Kat up again to save his own pathetic life.
Leo is a parasite, an incurable spreading infection in Kat's life.
And Dante beats him to death. Bare hands. He pummels his face until he is completely unrecognizable. But here is my massive, insurmountable issue with this scene.
Okay.
Dante makes the unilateral decision to execute Kat's only remaining family member without her consent.
Well,
He doesn't bring Leo back to face her. He doesn't ask what she wants. He plays God. It is the ultimate act of controlling patriarchal hubris. He decides what is best for her, strips her of her agency in dealing with her own trauma, and executes her brother in a dirty alley. She didn't get to choose.
look, you're looking for closure in a courtroom. You want a civilized confrontation. But think about Kat's psychology.
I am.
If Dante brings Leo back, Kat would have faltered. Kat would have looked at Leo, bleeding and begging, and she would have remembered the boy with the fluffy blonde hair who used to make her chocolate chip pancakes when their parents fought.
She might have.
She would have remembered the brother she loved. And she would have shown mercy. She would have begged Dante to let him live.
Which is her right. It is her trauma to process.
And Leo would have returned. The moment he owed money again, the moment he needed leverage for his next fix, he would have targeted Kat, or worse, their unborn child, Gabriella.
Right.
He was an addict to his own survival at the expense of everyone else. Dante understands the mechanics of a parasite. If you leave a single cell, the cancer returns and kills the host.
So he just decides to murder him.
Dante beats Leo to death, not out of hubris, but to take the moral stain of the execution entirely onto himself. He deliberately keeps Kat's hands clean. He absorbs the sin of killing her brother so she doesn't have to carry the agonizing guilt of ordering it or the inevitable fatal tragedy of letting him live. He embraces his identity as the refined devil to keep Kat forever in the light.
Kat's reaction when he tells her is, it's complex. It's really hard to read.
Yeah.
She grieves, she cries for the boy who made pancakes, she mourns the brother she lost years ago. But she ultimately accepts that her husband killed the shadow her brother had become. She accepts the devil's bargain.
Because she recognizes the absolute brutal necessity of it. Her sanctuary required that sacrifice.
Which brings our friction today to a simmering, unresolved halt. We are looking at the incredible, paradoxical duality as Dante Moretti.
The white knight versus the refined devil.
A man who will violently, systematically crush a man's skull with his bare hands, who will shoot his own father in the head without a single flinch of hesitation,
Yeah.
but who will turn to his wife, hold her trembling body after a nightmare, and whisper, "Sei la cosa più bella che mi sia mai capitata."
You are the best thing that's ever happened to me.
It forces you to evaluate the architecture of your own morality. It strips away the comfort of black and white ethics.
Exactly. I want you, listening to this right now, to reflect on your own definitions of safety, of justice.
Yeah, think about it.
In a world that is inherently chaotic, where institutions consistently fail the vulnerable, where the law is often a suggestion for the rich and a weapon against the poor, do we secretly crave the protection of someone who operates completely outside the rules? Do we harbor a dark, unspoken desire for a protector who doesn't ask a judge for a subpoena, but just brings a baseball bat and a locked door?
The appeal of the protective monster is the appeal of absolute certainty in an uncertain world.
It is the guarantee that the dark will not take you.
Dante claims he's not a good man. Kat ultimately agrees with him. He's a bad man.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you with this lingering thought. If a bad man is the only one willing to burn the entire world down to the studs to protect the innocent,
Right.
if the devil is the only one standing between you and the actual monsters waiting in the dark, does the distinction between a knight and a monster even matter anymore?
I don't know.
Just think about it.
Eh.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.